Are you feeling it? There is a shift in the atmosphere. The overpowering pull in your spirit, the profound realization in your bones that you were not meant only to live. You were made for greatness. Every difficulty, failure, and betrayal was not intended to break you. It was about revealing who you really are. They questioned, undervalued, and gossiped about you in private. But this is the truth. You were not one of them. You were set apart, chosen, and divinely positioned. And now for the inheritance. They figured you'd never claim. It has returned, not with their permission, but by divine command. You were not made to shrink. You were intended to shape the soil under your feet. Your ascension is more than just an accomplishment. It is the fulfillment of prophecy. When you go forward, systems wobble and illusions crumble. And those who have before mocked you are unable to look away. Not because they want to support you, but because they are presented with a reality they never wanted to face. You were always destined for this. You do not seek validation. You do not seek recognition. You do not beg for a seat at their table, since the throne has always been yours. Now is the moment to seize it, for we walk by faith, not sight. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7. Consider a grandmaster at the chessboard, watching his opponent celebrate, certain they have caught him in check. They celebrate, convinced that the game is over. But they don't realize that every piece they moved, every idea they thought was theirs, has already been accounted for. The master guessed the result before they had made their first move. That's you. That is why people are bewildered. They thought they were coordinating every move. I assumed they were setting traps that you couldn't get out of. I believe they outplayed you. But they didn't comprehend they were never in command. They entered a conflict that they were unaware had been prepared long before they arrived. Before they took action against you, the truth had already been written. The outcome was sealed. Every attempt to defame you ultimately backfired. Every wall they built to surround you became its own prison. They saw your stillness as weakness. They saw your silence as ignorance. But they didn't comprehend or grasp that some forces don't react. They shape. You weren't caught off guard. You weren't scrambling. You were watching them get ensnared in the same web they spun for you, as their plans crumbled on themselves, and as the very tale they intended to write about. You evaporated in their hands, leaving them in bewilderment, not because you won, but because you had never lost. They thought they had control, but it was never theirs to claim. They sought to shape your future, but they were only following a path that had been laid long before they came. And this is what bothers them the most. The realization that they were never a genuine part of your journey. They are now confined behind the walls they built to keep you within. The same falsehoods they used to dupe you. They've been caught up in their own words because they never had the upper hand. Not for 1 second. They weren't outmaneuvering you. They were going to confront their destiny. They didn't see it coming. And here you are, not just victorious but untouchable. Not because you replied. Because you foresaw. Not because you played their game. Because you have never played at all. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1 verse 5. Imagine a single candle in a dark room. The shadows stretched long and deep, struggling to maintain their shape and grip on the region. But once that little spark ignites, everything changes. The darkness doesn't fight back. It does not push against the light. It's simply gone. It was never very strong in the beginning. It was only present where the light refused to shine. That is exactly what happens when you enter a room. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to introduce yourself. The air shifts. The energy shifted. The burden of truth falls on those who have built their lives on falsehoods. This is not something you do. It is who you are. Your presence is not overlooked. It displays their meticulously coordinated performances. Falter. The lies they told themselves now seem weaker. The image they've carefully cultivated begins to collapse, and they have no clue why. But they know it has something to do with you. Nothing you've done has made them feel uncomfortable. They are worried with what they perceive in themselves. And that is the thing with truth. It does not engage in argument. It doesn't fight. It just stands. And when the truth is revealed, Everything built on falsehoods starts to tremble. Allow them to shift in their seats, fidget with their hands, waver their voices, and drop their gaze to the floor. They aren't reacting to you. Exclusive knowledge and a path that aligns with your spiritual destiny. This isn't just a present. It's a declaration, a step towards being the person you were meant to be. Take the call, walk with us, and really accept your destiny. Your journey begins today. The most potent component. You don't need to force anything. You don't lower your energy. You do not shrink them to make them more comfortable. And you don't explain what is already evident. Your very presence is the answer. Let them whisper. Allow them to avoid eye contact. Allow them to inquire why they are suddenly feeling vulnerable. The truth has entered the room, and it will not leave things the same way it found them. No weapon created against you will succeed. Isaiah 5417. Consider a blacksmith hammering frantically in the fire, certain he's creating a weapon to beat you. He sharpens the blade, polishes the steel, and watches the sparks fly as he works on its construction, certain that when the time comes, it will take you down for good. But he doesn't realize that the fire he used to create his weapon is the same fire that created you. They clapped when you stumbled, mistaking one moment of tranquility for a lifetime of defeat. They assumed that your silence signaled a retreat, that your absence signified the conclusion of your story. However, they failed to see that silence is not surrender, but rather a strategy. While others were bragging, you were gathering. While they were counting you out, you were counting the lessons. Each defeat resets you. Every betrayal has refined you, and every setback paved the path for something far greater. They thought they built the walls to keep you contained. They just offered you anything to climb. However, they believed they could determine your conclusion, rejecting you like an incomplete film thrown into the fire. But the flames didn't consume you. You have been commissioned. The problems meant to destroy you become the raw materials for your ascension. Every pain culminated in knowledge. Every scar, each closed door contains a sermon, a divine guiding. And now, having seen the power, they have endeavored to pull it away in ways they do not comprehend. They don't know whether to refute or fear it. They sit motionless now, trying to convince themselves that you are not the strength they see standing before them. They convince themselves it's a coincidence, simply luck, and it'll just last a minute. But deep inside, they know. They understand they did not break you. They know they didn't stop you. They realize they never had the power. They felt they did because you weren't simply supposed to live. You were called for reign. And they're no longer just watching you soar. They are forced to declare that they were not responsible for your first fall. They tried to destroy you, but they can no longer escape you. They tried to stop you, but now they can't keep up. And that is divine justice. No weapon created against you will succeed. You will condemn every tongue that speaks against you in judgment. Isaiah 5417. Consider a storm coming in from the ocean, violent and unrelenting. The winds howl, the waves rise, the sky darkens. It seemed unstoppable, powerful, destructive. However, under the surface, deep into the unknown, the ocean floor stays fixed. It does not shake. It does not break. Regardless of how intense the storm above, the foundation remains intact. That's you. They tried to shake you, but you were never standing where they could reach. Every attack, rumor, every trap they set, it was not indicative of your weakness. It was evidence of your strength. They believed they could break something beyond their control. They felt that their methods could ruin what had been constructed by something greater than themselves. However, all they did was confirm reality. You were never within their reach. Their confusion is unrelated to your endurance. It's about the unseen forces that urge you forward. They mistaken them for architects planning to tear you down, but they weren't aware that the plan was never theirs to build. They tried scrawling an ending, but the ink dried before they could finish the statement. They cloaked their intentions in deception, believing they had left no trace. But the truth has a way of emerging at the proper time, and their own conscience is suddenly something they can't escape. The past does not fade. It follows. It slips into the silence and speaks out at the most unexpected moments, disrupts tranquility. They are not bothered by you. Their acts still haunt them, because they are fully aware of the facts. They never had the authority they believed they possessed. They ran from the ramifications. They refused, rejected, and avoided. However, the weight of truth is not easily swayed. No matter how far they go, it will always find them, not as a yearning or nostalgia, but as an undeniable truth. They cannot silence. They thought they were writing your destruction, but now they are locked in the story they tried to create. And you? You were never the one buried. You were always climbing. Before I created you in the womb, I knew you before you were born. I placed you aside. Jeremiah 1:5. Imagine a tree planted in the middle of a storm. The wind blows violently, and the rain pours heavily. The earth trembled. On the surface, it seems like the storm is winning. It seems like the tree is on the verge of collapse. What no one sees or knows is that, under the dirt, out of sight, the tree's roots are sinking deeper, expanding wider, and anchoring themselves so solidly into the ground that no storm, force, or opposition can uproot what was carefully planted. That's you. They imagined they could shake you, test your limitations, and destroy your foundation. However, they never realized your foundation was not founded on them. It was not made with their permission, validation, or approval. It was founded on something eternal, unchanging, and determined. They saw the surface. They never noticed what was going on underneath them. They saw the battle. They never saw the strengthening. They thought they were tearing you down, but all they did was make your roots grow deeper, because winning was not an option. It was never as if the strategy for your success was mapped out before you took your first breath, or before the betrayal. Prior to the attack, a repair plan was in place. There was a countermove before they tried to bury you. The seeds for your rise had already been sown. They did not have a chance. They saw your silence as submission. They mistook your stillness for stagnation. They didn't know you weren't waiting for their approval. You were waiting for the allotted hour. They thought their obstacles could stop you, not realizing that they were only preparing the way for something larger. They felt their ideas would limit you, not realizing that every approach they initiated was pre-planned. And now it is up to them to ask questions. I'm left wondering why nothing works. Why are you still around? Why did every trap they created just lead to your elevation? They cannot figure it out because they never had control. They thought they were pinning your finale, but they never touched the pin. The outcome was settled before the fight ever began. It was never about just getting by. It was about showing them the world, proving that you were never an underdog. You were never at their mercy. You were never in danger of failing. You were always called, always covered, always selected. So the battle is no longer yours to fight, since the war was won before it started. That is all that is left to be done. Step into what was always meant to be yours. However, the foolish took just the lights, not the oil. However, the cautious used oil in their dishes and lamps. Matthew 25 verses 3 and 4. Consider a traveler traveling through the night, guided just by the flicker of a lamp. Initially, the light is adequate. They go fearlessly, unconcerned about the oil burning within or what keeps the flame alive. They anticipate it to last forever. However, after time, the oil depletes. The light fades. The darkness seemed to have grown thicker. They look for more oil, expecting to find another flame as intense as the one they overlooked. However, when they realize what they have lost, it is too late. They no longer own the light on which they rely. This is exactly what happened to them. They took your presence for granted. They expected you would always be approachable, accessible, and a source from which they could draw without ever replenishing. They mistook your energy for an endless supply, unaware that the well may run dry one day. They profited from your warmth and absorbed your light, but they never thought about the cost of living. And now? Now they are the traveler with an empty lamp, looking for what they once had but never really appreciated. They look for the same fire in others, but it is never as intense, persistent, or overwhelming. They want the same depth, insight, and presence. However, nothing can compare since it was never about you as a person. It was about what you were carrying. They relied on your essence without realizing its paucity. They expected you to continue donating since you were so generous. They assumed your light was for them. They never claimed it because it was never theirs. And the loneliness they experience is no longer exclusively attributable to your absence. It is the realization that they were never whole without the things they took for granted. You didn't go away to punish them. You departed because it was time. And while others sit silently, seeking a reflection of what they have lost, you stand firm, knowing that your light was never meant to be extinguished. It was meant to illuminate the path for those who followed it. They glance at their own reflections, and for the first time, they realize they are without the light they took, because it was never only about your presence. It was the way you accentuated their existence, how your energy made them seem larger than life, and how your presence masked the emptiness they refused to acknowledge. You were more than just another person in their group. You were the gravitational force holding everything together. Without that force, people feel weightless, detached, and disoriented. They mistook their power for their own, not realizing it had been stolen. And now they sit in quiet, feeling the weight of an absence they cannot fill. Because in the end, you were never the one who needed them. They were always committed to the vital. They had no idea how much they meant for evil. God used for good. Genesis 5020. Consider a river that flows freely over the ground. Consider someone racing to block it, heaping stones and creating barriers, sure that they can stop its advance. For a minute, it seems like they have slowed the water and disrupted the flow. But they don't realize the river hasn't stopped. It is diverting, gathering strength, and building pressure. And when the time comes, it charges forward with even greater fury, forging a trail they never expected. That's you. They thought they could stop you, but they just strengthened the power of your ascent. They believed they had the capacity to change your story. They spoke in privacy. We discussed strategies behind closed doors, convinced that whispers conceal doors. Unseen hands may obstruct your progress. They honestly thought they could silence something beyond their control. They set traps, built obstacles, and crept in the shadows. But they never considered the hand that was already controlling your actions. Every hurdle they constructed just led you to something greater. Every obstacle they intended to cause turned into an opportunity for your progress. They intended their involvement would slow you down and cause you to stumble. But all they did was accelerate what was already predetermined. Because that is the truth. They never understood what was meant. Cannot be stopped. The chosen do not experience stress. It sharpens their abilities. You are never at their mercy. Never depend on their approval. And now they don't understand how you keep going. How each attack they planned just served as another stepping stone under your feet. They don't just watch in defeat. They look on, perplexed. They believed they had control, but they never did. They felt they had control over your ending. However, they were not the author. And now, as they sit in silence, trying to make sense of what they have seen, one truth stays unchanged. Nothing they did worked, and nothing they do will ever alter what has already been written. The stone that the builders rejected is now the cornerstone. Psalm 118:22. To the untrained eye, imagine an artist standing in front of a block of marble, chisel in hand. It's just a chunk of stone, ordinary, harsh, and shaped. Critics walk by, shaking their heads and dismissing it as worthless. I am certain it will never amount to anything. But the artist sees something that others don't. With each stroke of the hammer, the masterpiece appears. They overlooked the same stone. It was always intended to stand in the center, immovable and obvious. The foundation for something greater. That's you. They wrote you off, yet you became the one thing they couldn't ignore. They don't just grieve your achievement. They are terrified of what it could reveal. It exposes every lie on which they place their reliance. It compels them to accept their power limits and recognize that their ideas have never had an impact on your destiny, that their permission was never required for your development. Every stride you take, every door that opens in your favor, is a break in the illusion they sought to maintain. They imagined they contributed more to your story than they ever did. They persuaded themselves that they were essential. They convinced themselves that they were accountable for your success or failure. But this is the truth. They never had the pin. And now, when they see you fully embrace your purpose, they are faced with a reality they were not expecting. You don't just accomplish despite them. You succeed without them. That is the part they cannot handle. Not only that, but you made it. Not only are you successful, but their absence has no effect on your advancement. The power they thought they had over you. It was never authentic. The role they anticipated playing on your vacation. They made their own illusion. Because that is the truth. The greatest loss they feel is not seeing you achieve. It acknowledges that they are no longer in your world. While they concentrate on the past and analyze what went wrong, you take a courageous step into a future they never expected to see. They thought that your success would result in their loss. However, their most significant defeat is the awareness that you no longer see them. The Lord will fight for you. You just need to stay stationary. Exodus 1414. Consider the potter at the wheel. The clay starts with nothing, shapeless, ordinary, rough. But the potter knows what it will become. He pushes and strains. It spins with strong hands. And, just as the form begins to take shape, he employs fire. The heat is insufficient to destroy it. The fire induces solidification. This renders it unbreakable. That's you. Every trial, deceit, and storm. They were not meant to take you out. They were meant to cleanse you. They foretold your destruction before you were aware there was a dispute. They muttered and worked behind closed doors, certain that they could choreograph a finale that was never theirs to make. But they didn't know, or couldn't grasp, that the countermove had already been planned long before they came out against you. Your route had already been cleared. Every obstacle they created was really a detour to something greater. Every setback they said would shatter you was really a repositioning for a bigger triumph. They anticipated their opponents to shake you, not realizing you were built for this before you knew your own strength. Opposition was mounting even before you started to follow your profession. The battle had already begun. But here's the fact. They failed to grasp that you never had to work for what you have. The struggle wasn't meant to prove anything to them. The difficulty was about locating you. So, while people rushed to understand, sought for solutions, and whispered rumors among themselves, you simply continued moving. There is no hesitation, no second thought. You move quickly, fiercely, and without looking back. Because it was never about revenge. Everything revolved around alignment. It was never meant to demand a spot at their table. It was about realizing that you weren't intended to sit there in the first place. And now they are bewildered. They don't comprehend that all they did against you just made you stronger. They don't understand how what they taught you laid the groundwork for something larger. They don't understand why you don't feel better, why you aren't broken, or why you aren't stuck in the past. But here's why. Because you have never fought their wars. They were playing games in the dark, but you were always moving in the light. They thought they could stop you, but they lacked the authority to do so. They must now be alert. Keep track of your progress as you advance. Keep an eye on your progress. Watch as you embrace all you were meant to be. This isn't just success. This is how destiny unfolds. This is not a whim. This is the celestial order taking its correct position. And now, while others sit silently, wondering where they went wrong, you stand in the fullness of what was always meant for you. Unchanging, unwavering, and unstoppable. They gaze, unable to understand how nothing can disturb you. Why did every attempt to stop you backfire? Why? Despite all attempts to erase your presence, you become more obvious. What bothers me the most isn't only your ascension. Your ascension demonstrates that they never had the power. They felt that their actions would only help you go ahead. That no matter how much they tried to affect the outcome, they were never in control. And now the truth is in front of them, undeniable and irreversible. They felt they could suppress something that was never meant to be contained. Silence. What was always supposed to be spoken and stopped. It was never theirs to influence. But you don't disappear. You grow. You ascend. You are proof that no interference, deceit, or opposition can destroy what is founded on something unbreakable. That is what they fear. Not just your victory, but the implications for everything they previously thought. They were in command.